I felt silly preparing for this video because I think this is something I should know about already. But the reality is, no one actually taught me how to have healthy relationships with others, at least not to my knowledge. The majority of the advice that I was given about relationships was situational or through entertainment or media, which is bad because most of the media I was consuming had very little to do with healthy relationships, particularly relationships with women. Even though I am behind on this area of healthy relationships, as I'm sure many of you are, because it wasn't taught, modeled, or encouraged to us as Black boys. It's never too late to learn and grow. And honestly, this is partially a response to your platonic relationship with her is pointless. It's a clip from Fresh and Fit, one of their longer podcast episodes. But yeah, it's called Your Platonic Relationship with Her is Pointless. And so as I was preparing for this video, I came across this video because I typed in, in YouTube search, platonic relationships. And this is one of the videos that came up. I put the link in the description. You can go and check it out. Healthy platonic relationships aren't taught in our community, and it's messing us up as men. The absence of healthy relationships in general, even with ourselves, is hindering us from being our best selves. During this video, when I'm referencing platonic relationships, I'm focusing on relationships between men and women. The reason why this is so important, especially in how we relate to women, is because relationships are the foundation of a healthy and strong community. If we desire to build and benefit the Black community, we have to be able to have healthy and beneficial relationships with men, women, children, and ourselves. The common train of thought for how to relate to women has either been you're smashing, passing, or hoping to smash. That's the general advice. And it hasn't really changed over the years from when I was younger to now, because this is advice that Fresh and Fit give and other agents of gray mediocrity give to men in our community. This kind of outlook has a negative impact on us as men, on women, and our community as a whole. As an example, a lot of Black men don't value or respect Black women that aren't their family or romantic partners. Every woman outside of those two categories isn't seen as important or deserving of respect, protection, or care. This perspective diminishes the inherent value and worth all women have. It limits men to animalistic and beastly standards and expectations and leaves a huge hole of vulnerability for our community. There's a hole there because men won't protect and stand up for those who look like them, just because they're not blood relatives or they're not romantically involved. As beneficial Black men, we can't settle for such mediocrity. We need to raise our standards and see that the people in our community can be seen as family. I'll touch more on those negative impacts on Black men and women a little later. What is a platonic relationship? A platonic relationship is one without romance, but is still loving, loyal, respectful, and honest. Here's a quote from a Psychology Today article entitled The Secret of Platonic Relationships by Diana Rabb, PhD. Platonic love is a special, emotional, and spiritual relationship between two people who love and admire one another because of common interests, a spiritual connection, and similar worldviews. It does not involve any type of sexual involvement. It's another quote from another article from Very Well Minded. A platonic relationship is one in which two people share a close bond but do not have a sexual relationship. They may even feel love for each other, referred to as platonic love. This concept originates in the ideas of the ancient philosopher Plato, from whose name the term is derived. So what's the difference between platonic and romantic relationships? The level of intimacy, particularly physical or sexual. See, the thing is, crossing that line or that boundary, that line of physical intimacy or sexual intimacy, creates lots of confusion, and I believe, honestly, has led to the what people like to call just like, I'm just vibing culture that we currently live in. And, I've heard it, a lot of people like, oh, I'm talking to, guys with like, yeah, I'm talking to this girl or whatever. But like, yeah, it's not, we're kind of just vibing, we're just vibing. Okay. Maybe I'm old school, but I still believe sex should be reserved for marriage in serious romantic relationships, not just vibes. I don't want to go down the path of religious or spiritual standards. I will say I believe sex in its various forms is a deeply spiritual, soulful, and physical experience that shouldn't be taken lightly, whether you're a man or a woman. I know a lot of guys believe that it's okay for them to have a long list of partners while their lady cannot. The belief is that if women have lots of sexual partners, that it lowers her value. First, that's not true. An amazing woman is an amazing woman regardless of how many partners or experiences she's had. And if you think a woman with a lot of partners isn't valuable, then you need to believe the same about men or about yourself with lots of partners. I'm ultimately saying be equal if we're going to use that as a judgment. Because if you're out here calling women hoes because they're doing all that, you're a hoe too if you're sleeping around and having lots of partners. It's the same thing. It's literally the same thing. One of the major problems to why we don't have healthy platonic relationships or healthy relationships in general within the Black community is because male and female relationships are often over-sexualized. Very rarely do we see images of men and women just being friends. Either someone has unrequited love for the other, someone is stuck in the friend zone, or to some degree, they're friends with benefits. Many of the relationships we have are dependent on what we get out of them as men, whether that's emotional support or sexual intimacy. So if you have a friend that's a woman that you're close with, I'm sure you've been asked, are y'all a thing? Or are you trying to hook up with her? Or something to that effect. It's often very strange for a man to have a woman friend that's not his girlfriend, spouse, or relative. The assumption is every man and woman in a close relationship is romantically involved on some level or not, which isn't good. There's a way to have healthy relationships with the opposite sex without it boiling down to romantic and physical intimacy. Why are platonic relationships important? Here's a quote from an Insider article by Sarah Fielding. It says, cultivating platonic relationships can also help your health. In a large 2010 review, researchers found people with strong social relationships had a 50% higher likelihood of living longer than those without them. Having relationships in general are beneficial. It helps you to live longer, helps you to be in community with people, and it helps you to process things in life. Nobody is supposed to go through life isolated. And again, platonic relationships expand broader than just opposite sex relationships. So having healthy relationships with other men is important, but also having healthy relationships with women, because women can provide different perspectives in your life. You need those. You need that balance. We were created to be in relationships with other human beings, male and female, men and women. And if we don't have those, if we are depriving ourselves of these relationships because we feel like, one, we can't be emotionally mature enough to share ourselves with other people, and if we can't control our sexual urges, if we're too immature to see women as more than just sexual objects, we are limiting our human experience. And that's literally cutting our life short. It's also important in regards to building our community. As brothers and sisters, we should be able to live and work together in a healthy way and not have to worry about the potential underlying tension of sexual advances. Say you're trying to build a business. Say you're at a job and you're working somewhere and your coworkers are women. It's going to be difficult for them to work with you if all they think is that you're trying to get in their pants. And it's going to be difficult for you to work with them if all you're now thinking about is, are these women that I could potentially sleep with? Not actually seeing them for the value that they bring to project that you're working on or bringing to the company, or just the value that they inherently have. If you are limiting to like, is this somebody I can, get in bed with? Like you're missing out on so much. You're missing out on so much of your life, missing out on so much that you could actually be benefiting from to help you grow, to help them grow, to help your overall plan and organization and company grow. Women are super intelligent. Women have a lot of great things, and so do men. The only way that we can actually accomplish the amazing things that we want to accomplish in our community, in the Black community, we have to see each other as equals and partners and respect one another in that way. The tragic thing about our community, especially towards Black men, for Black men, is that we've been taught that women aren't those things, that they aren't really intelligent, that they aren't beneficial assets outside of their reproductive organs, that they're not beneficial assets to the whole. These archaic ideas, these quote unquote traditional ideas are limiting. They're limiting our community, it's limiting how we relate to one another, and limiting women. And it sucks. And it's not good. And it's not helping you either, Black man. Like, we gotta shift this mindset. We have to. We're often taught that women are just sexual objects. This kind of teaching, this idea, is one of the reasons we don't have healthy platonic relationships. It's one of the reasons that our community is messed up. From my personal experience, most men separate women into 3 categories: family, sexually interesting, and not sexually interesting. The sad part is, when we look at women and people in general this way, focusing on their sexual availability to us, we strip them of their humanity. We take away that they're more than their sexual organs. We take away that they're individuals with their own desires and inclinations. When we boil women down to what they can do for us, we don't see them as people. We also don't take the beneficial approach of seeing how we can be of good to them. Side note, for you guys who think meeting a sexual need is a form of providing good to a woman, you should probably reevaluate your own self-worth. Just like you shouldn't diminish a woman's being to sex, you shouldn't do the same to yourself. Just a side note. So how do we prepare ourselves for healthy opposite sex platonic relationships? We have to work on, one, valuing women in their personhood. You have to understand, it sounds basic and it sounds almost idiotic, but I know a lot of people don't realize it. A lot of men don't realize it. Women are people. Like, really. For example, this is why I know a lot of men don't see it that way. And it took me some time in actually listening to women to really understand it. It's a very subtle nuance. And you pay attention to, if you're saying this yourself, black man, every time you address a woman as a female instead of a woman, you are diminishing her personhood. You are diminishing her humanity. You're literally taking her humanity away and just separating her into like some animalistic species. And I hear it all the time. A guy will say, yeah, you got this man over here and this female. No, you have a man and a woman. It's basic. It's very subtle, but really it's hidden misogyny. And more specifically, it's hidden misogynoir. And within our community and with our culture and within this society, it's pervasive. And we're all taught it subconsciously, consciously. It's there all the time. We have to work on that. We have to work on valuing women in their personhood. So think about that. Pay attention to your words. Are you calling black women females? Or when you're listening to certain music, are you calling them out of their names? Consider that. Think about that. Second, we have to respect women as equals. Men and women are both very, very intelligent beings, and we are both equally logical and emotional. How they show up is different, but we both are designed with the same stuff. We have the same brain. We have the same heart. We have all of the same parts outside of like the sexual parts. We also have access to even the same hormones. And sure, those things can influence our moods and stuff like that, but we have the same mental processes. We're both logical and emotional. Again, the sad part for us as black men in this society and with the culture that influences our community, a lot of that emotional and intuitive side has been stripped from us. And so we think and we're taught that we have to rely heavily on this logical side, this masculine side. But no, we have both, and so do women. And when things are in proper balance, it works well together. But our community has been sabotaged by a lot of things, Since that stuff is out of whack, we're all out of whack. And that impacts our relationships, it impacts our mental health, it impacts our emotional health. And so we have to do that work to get it back leveled and get back to being equals. And we have to see women as that, whether they're just sisters in the community or they are your spouse or your significant other, whatever. Women are equals. They are in this community to work with us to build something greater. We have to change our mindset about that. The third thing that we need to do is we have to see all black women as mothers and sisters. I think a lot of us already do this to some degree in our community. Some of us have many, many aunts that aren't really aunts. And we may have like play cousins that we grew up with or whatever. But I'm specifically getting this idea from Scripture. It's from 1 Timothy chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. It's talking about the body of Christ, but I think we can use this as a standard to apply in our community. It reads, "Rebuke not an elder, but entreat him as a father." You can respect older men in the community. See them as fathers or as uncles or whatever. And the younger men as brethren. Your peers, see them as brothers. And then if you have men that are younger than you, boys that are younger than you, see them as younger brothers. Verse 2, the elder women as mothers, women that are older than you in whatever degree. See them as mothers or aunts. And the younger as sisters. It's the same thing with peers or women that are younger than you. See them as sisters. And the other caveat there in the scripture, it says with all purity. So that's the same with mothers and sisters, with all purity. Don't stay focused or see sisters as just sexual objects. We got to get that under control. We got to get that under control. And that doesn't mean that you can't acknowledge that a woman is attractive. I mean, if you're trying to be in a relationship, if you're pursuing marriage and stuff, yeah, you're going to find somebody as attractive. You are. I mean, that's just what it is. But you got to keep that under control. You can't let that be the guiding force behind how you relate to the opposite sex. And lastly, what I was just mentioning, we have to develop self-control and not let sex be our driving force in relationships. As we continue to work on ourselves, we also have to work on how we relate to others. Healthy relationships, whether platonic, romantic, brotherly, familial, etc., are all important. They're also necessary for us to have a healthy and beneficial life. In short, platonic relationships, your platonic relationship with her is not pointless. It's actually very beneficial for you and beneficial for the community. I would also highly recommend that every man read this book, I Don't Sexually Abuse Black Females by Walter McCrae. It's a helpful resource in reframing how we as men should look at Black women and girls in our community. And also check out this video somewhere on the screen where I talk about leaving your mark on your community and the legacy in your life. Until next time, protect your mental, find time for an emotional release valve, and keep working to become beneficial. Peace.